Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is your...
Feels different. It feels fantastic.
Photo News Fix. This fix is brought to you by me and the first FroKnowsPhoto bootcamp in over 10 years.
10 years!
That's right, I'm bringing back my full-day hands-on workshops, and there's only 15 total spots available.
15!
The bootcamp will take place here at the Fro Factory in Philadelphia on Saturday, July 13th, and run roughly 8 hours, and guess what?
Oh shit, what?
We're not gonna be sitting in the studio all day listening to me speak. We're actually gonna get out into the world and do some shooting.
The real world.
Everything from action to portraits to group shots, and we're gonna do low light inside. Everyone who signs up will also receive a free 45-minute one-on-one mentorship call with me that can be used over the next year after the boot camp. For more information and to lock in your spot before they're all gone, head on over to bit.ly/July 13th Fro. Now, before we get into the news stories, I want to wish my oldest fan, Larry, a very happy 88th birthday. Can everyone please leave a comment down below wishing Larry a very happy birthday, please?
Just do it!
First up, Sigma has announced what they are calling a world's first lens. Now, to be exact, they said the world's first zoom lens with a constant f1.8 aperture for full-frame mirrorless cameras. Introducing the Sigma 28-45 f1.8 DGDN Art full-frame lens for the Sony E-mount, and of course, the
L-mount Alliance.com.
I did get my hands on this lens to take it out into the real world, where I photographed a band named Nimrod, landscape photos at Longwood Gardens, and of course, on the field at a Major League Baseball game, and I have to say it produced some fantastic looking images. That's because I took them. The photos are sharp, colorful, and have that unique look that you only get from faster glass, generally primes. But there's always a trade-off, and with this Sigma lens, the trade-off is its range. In many situations, it's not wide enough, or in some situations, it's not long enough. Now, sure, it replaces the need for almost 3 prime lenses, a 28, a 35, and a 50. Not sure why people use a 20. I still don't understand the 28mm focal length. Anyway, it certainly isn't the most versatile zoom ever, but it is a hell of a lot quicker than trying to switch primes every 12 seconds when you want a different focal length. Now, in terms of autofocus, I didn't even notice that it was focusing, which means it is fast. Now, keep in mind, you're still limited to a maximum of 15 frames per second, even on Sony cameras capable of shooting 20 or 30 or more per second. So how much is it? It's $1,349, which isn't bad if you consider what a 28, a 35, and a 50 from Sigma would cost, which is almost $2,000, but those are for 1.4s, so there's a little bit of a trade-off there. So if you're someone who wants what amounts to 3 prime lenses in one zoom, this might be the lens for you. Next up, Canon has finally announced the long-rumored and long-desired 35 1.2 RF. Actually, scratch that, it's a 1.4. Introducing the Canon 35mm f1.4 RF VCM, the first in what is going to be a line of other VCM lenses, which if I had to guess means we will probably see everything from a 24 1.4 to 50 1.4 and an 85 1.4. Now, up until this point, we've mostly seen Pro 1.2 RF lenses, and of course, there was the 35 and 50 1.8 RF, but no 1.4s. In fact, neither Canon nor Nikon offered any 1.4 lenses. But you know who did?
No.
Sony. Sony has a whole lineup of 1.4 E-mount lenses. Anyway, VCM stands for Voice Coil Motors, yeah, which is not USM or STM, it's something all entirely different. Canon is focusing this lens primarily for video shooters, but does point out that it will be nice for still shooters as well.
Duh.
It's priced at $1,500, which is $100 more than the Sony's 35 1.4 when it's not on sale. Personally, I love 35mm as a focal length for photojournalistic stills work, but for twice the money, you can grab my favorite Canon RF lens ever, the 28-70 f2. Sure, it's not a 1.4, but it's potentially replacing 4 prime lenses with one zoom, or you could just buy the new 35 1.4, which is a hell of a lot lighter and is going to be a 1.4, and forget I said anything at all. Thoughts? Prayers? leave them down below. And finally, Canon has announced their latest cinema camera, the C400. The C400 builds off the popularity of their past cinema cameras and finally adds an RF mount. Yes, you already had an RF mount in the R5C and the C700, but not in the C300 line. So the fact that it's going RF is a nice upgrade. Not only did they go RF, but the C400 sports a newly developed 6K full-frame backside illuminated stacked sensor with something called triple base ISO. The ISOs of 800, 3200, and 12,800 maximize the full dynamic range of the camera. This new sensor will have faster readout speeds, which means less jelloing, and also has better 4K image quality from 6K oversampling. The C400 can record in 6K full frame up to 60p in 12-bit Cinema RAW Lite, 4K RAW up to 120 frames per second, and 2K RAW up to 180 frames per second. The autofocus has been updated with dual pixel AF2, which is really good because that autofocus is awesome, and you now have a CF Express B card slot and not just something like CFast or some out-of-date thing, but you also do get an SD card slot as well. Now there's a ton of other video specs that I will leave to someone else like Gerald Undone to unpack because he is more of a video-centric person and he can tell you everything else about it. The C400 will be available in September and is priced at $7,999, but with an asterisk that says pricing subject to change. I also wanted to mention Canon updated their Cinema Servo 17 to 120 millimeter lens that I didn't even know existed, honestly. I bring that up because, well, it's priced at $23,850 and will be available in October. Now, I do think the C400 is going to be a really nice replacement to the C300 and be perfect for run and gun shows where people want better quality than using something like an R5C, even though the R5C is very good. And there you have it. That's your photo news fix this time around. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.